Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. And my guest today is Lisa Duffy. I contacted her to be my guest because I saw a beautiful thing that she had posted that talked about what she does now. And it also showed her family from when she was very young. And I was so taken with her mother's radiance in this photograph. So, Lisa, that's what hooked me is your mother and her. She just had something so special about her. So before we start and we get to talk about her, I want to ask you your age because you have to qualify to be on this program. How old are you, Lisa?
Sure, Robin. Thank you so much for having me on. I am 61. I'll be 62 in 4 or 5 months.
Okay, perfect. So, do you mind starting with just kind of responding to my impression of that photograph of your mother? Your brother was in a wheelchair, you had a big family, and she had the most beautiful smile on her face. And I think when we spoke on the phone, you talked about her being an inspiration for you.
Very much so. And thank you for asking because I do love speaking about my mother. She is one of the most inspiring women that I know. And she gave me so much in the way of forming me and helping me become the adult that I am today. So I'm very happy to speak about her. She had, I think, a total of 10 children, lost a few in miscarriage. We adopted the boy that you see in the wheelchair in that photo. He was from Korea, and long story short, he was handicapped, and so she cared for him. So she not only had a large family of her own, but a special needs child that they cared for until he was well into his 20s. But my mother, in raising us, I mean, let's see, I was born in 1963, so you can automatically see that was a very different era than we had today. And my mother raised me as the oldest girl and the second oldest child, as a helper, as a nurturer. I was, you know, changing the diapers on my younger brothers and sisters and babysitting them and feeding them for a long time. But as I grew, my admiration for her just continued to grow because she was a very, I like to refer to her sometimes as an earth mother. So we grew up in Southern California. That's where I was born. And with a large family, she had to stretch her budget, right? And so, especially with food. And so she belonged to a food co-op where she could buy in bulk. And that also became sort of a thing with her where she was very, very interested in making things. I know we're hearing a lot today about food and additives and things like that, and how making your own things from scratch are much better for you. And I just sort of believe that she was a pioneer in that day and age, especially with our family. And so that also sort of translated to my interest in clean skincare. So there was definitely a parallel right there. But she was a great mother. She was very compassionate, and she was always asking us to find ways to help other people. And that also bled into, you know, the way I the way I view things these days, and the kind of person that I want to be: compassionate, caring. And so all of these things really kind of combine or culminate into why I do what I do with clean skincare. My mother today is not as active, she's much older, and my parents are both still alive, but regardless of her limitations, she is such an inspiration, always has been, still just as caring and compassionate. Um, I probably could go on for another hour, but and all of that to say, she's also very beautiful, always has been. And I am glad that at least a little bit of that rubbed off on me as well.
So I have a couple of questions. One is, where did the urge to bring in another person into your family when money was not, there wasn't an abundance of money, things were a little tight, a big family, and yet she welcomed another person into that family? Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yes, actually, I don't know the entire story, partially because I forget the details, also because I was much younger and not privy to a lot of the details. But our brother Eugene, that was the English name that we gave him. He, in Korea, they had found out about him, and he had a hole in his heart, and he was in an orphanage, and he was not given a much of a life expectancy because they could not operate on the hole in his heart there. So they, it's that compassion, it's that loving compassion that both my father and mother had that, compelled them to bring Eugene over from Korea and pay for, you know, the services to make him better. And I really sort of gloss over that because when he came over, there became more and more complications with his health. So it wasn't just one thing. There actually were many impediments to the final step, which was that surgery to fix his heart. But by the time Eugene had joined us, they had already in the past showed us the same example of courage and compassion when the 1975 fall of Saigon happened and all of, or so many refugees landed in Camp Pendleton in San Diego. My parents took us down to volunteer there, and we ended up sponsoring two different families, and that came to live with us for a matter of months. So they have always shown us that people are valuable, number one, and number two, that we should be compassionate and try and help others.
I remember hearing someone say once that love isn't like a pie where if you have more people, you need to divide it up amongst the pieces get smaller, that love just gets bigger. And what you're talking about is a beautiful, perfect example of that in your family. So the other thing I want to say or ask you about is that lots of people who needed to take on some adult tasks when they were very young, and you did, helping with the younger children and so on, they kind of grow up with a resentment about not having a full childhood and having to step into that adult role. I'm not hearing a trace of that with you, Lisa. Tell me about that.
Well, I think I fell in love with the role that my mother played. She did it so well. It doesn't mean that she didn't have struggles. Of course she does. She did. Everybody does. So I don't mean to say that she, that she floated around and everything, was amazing all the time. But she just did it so well. She had such a beautiful grace about her. And I had a very happy childhood. And I think that I loved being a mini her.
Okay, a
I
mini
think
mom.
that's really what it is.
I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about your skincare line, when you started it, how you came to make that choice to go into that business. I want to hear about that.
Well, I'm excited to share it. I think that there came a point for me, which really was age 45, where things just started rapidly changing physically. My hair was different, my skin was different, I was gaining weight, and I'm short, so even 10 pounds is going to look really, really noticeable on me. Um, and so I had already been through menopause and I was so very, very unhappy. I had spent the previous 20 years or so, well, by that time it was almost 20 years, um, helping others who had gone through divorce. I unfortunately went through a divorce when I was in my late 20s, and it was devastating. And after my healing process and everything, I just started doing that on my own, helping people realize, heal from their brokenness and realize new life. And but by this time that everything was changing in me and I just felt so desperately unhappy, I think I just did what I felt compelled to do every other time, which is find an answer. And I know that I tried a lot of different skincare products because I had sun damage. I was starting to see a lot of aging. I was having uneven skin tone. But most of all, most frustrating, the products that I normally used were starting to really irritate my skin. And that was distressing because they were good products. And I didn't want to stop using them, but they just were very harsh on my skin. So I started looking at labels. And again, this is where I think that Earth Mother influence from my mom and doing everything from an organic standpoint started to grab hold. I just started reading labels and I was confused. I, at the time, heard a lot of stories about, the dangers of synthetic chemicals. But I just couldn't read. I didn't understand what any of it was. So I didn't know if it was actually harmful or not. And that started me getting interested in what I was actually putting on my skin. And to make a long story short, that just sort of naturally unfolded into a keen interest into formulating skincare, not cosmetics and not. I sort of started out with soap and lotions and creams, and that was interesting enough and fine, but it just didn't get me where I wanted to be. I felt like there were that nature had an abundance of, good things to offer us. And I wanted to find out as much as I could about that. And so I took formal training in organic skincare. And then I have continued my training. It's an ongoing process always. But I just discovered that, not every synthetic chemical is bad for you. That would not be true, even though some companies like to, would hope you would believe that. But then again, not all natural things are good for you as well. So there's a balance to be had. And I just think that um, with so much out there that is so good for your skin, especially as we age, why not take advantage of it? Magnolia bark extract is one of those. I know that we'll talk about that, but that's my favorite one. And I think that it just became something that I was so passionate about because there was truth in it, and there was I saw the effects on my own skin. And then when I began sharing it, I saw people become happy. I think one of my most exciting things about doing what I do is hearing someone tell me, my husband noticed. When your husband notices a change, that's a big deal because it doesn't really happen that often. As women, we go to a lot of lengths to look our best. And I think that if someone can get excited because their husband noticed, that just makes my day.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, women who get a very radical haircut and it just doesn't even get noticed. So for someone to note that skin looks different, that is a big deal. That's a very big deal. And what
Yeah.
you were saying about not all chemical products are bad and not all natural products are good. Each of us has individual reactions and sometimes allergies to things that can be very pure, very lovely for someone else, but not for us. They give us a problem. So it's a
Yes.
bit of a treasure hunt, finding our way to what works for us. All right, magnolia bark. Tell us about that. What is that?
Magnolia bark extract is actually something that's been used in Chinese medicine for centuries. So it's not a new ingredient or something that's really hyped. It has been used for many things beyond skincare. It's been used to reduce anxiety. It's been used internally as medicinal, which I can't speak on because it's not my expertise at all, but it has been used internally successfully to cure some ailments. But on your skin, it is a super antioxidant. It is an anti-inflammatory and it is an antibacterial. And those properties come from biocomponents of the bark. That's called magnolol and hanokiol. And I slow myself down because those are mouthfuls. But those are the two agents that um, are responsible for these beautiful anti-aging um, effects of magnolia bark extract. And magnolia bark extract, just so people know, I like to clarify that there's not, when you say natural skincare or something like that, it's not like a farm to face sort of thing, the way farm to table is often, and we love that sort of thing. But you can't really grab rose petals and smash them up and put them on your face, right? That's not the way it works. These natural ingredients have to be transformed in a lab. It's the same thing with the magnolia bark. It's harvested and it undergoes a transformation. So by the time I have it in my lab, it is a golden liquid and it's very, very pure. And it's that's the best. It's like liquid gold for your face. But that's what magnolia bark is. And a doctor told me a long time ago, he said, he said, imagine yourself as a lit cigarette. When you're young, the lit part is way up here, and there's really no ash. But as you age, that ash gets longer and longer and longer. That's oxidation. That's what happens to us as we age. It's the natural way. You can't stop it, but you can slow it down with antioxidants. That's why mentioned before, nature just has an abundance of great things to offer us. And antioxidants for your skin is one of those. And magnolia bark in particular is a super antioxidant.
Okay, that sounds pretty convincing to me. Yeah, and you are convincing as well, Lisa. I can tell that your skin is just lovely, soft
Thank
and
you.
smooth and radiant. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
you're a great advertisement, as the Brits would say, for your products. What else do we need to know about caring for our skin that you can tell us that we might not know?
Um, that's a great question. I think something really important to understand is the stinging that might occur, the stinging or um, the irritations that happen. Sometimes they are products. It is the cause of the product. But as we age, most of the time, it is because our skin has become very thin and cracks easily. And those cracks allow for an irritant, or maybe something that wouldn't normally be irritating becomes irritating because of that crack, is a better way to put it. Um, but also, if you use exfoliants that have things like pumice or even finely ground walnut shells, which is has been an industry standard for a long time, they can cause micro tears. And that, if you have all these little micro tears on your skin, of course, there's going to be stinging. So you had mentioned earlier that we're all individuals and we all need to find what's right for us. And I stand behind that 100% because my skin, we don't have identical skin or genes or anything. So we have to find what's right for us. So it is a bit of a process as you age, finding the product that works right for you, but staying away from things that will scratch and tear your skin is important. And oftentimes a cleanser can be a lot more abrasive than it might appear to be just from its packaging. So I think that's like the number one thing that I would hope people would understand going forward. As you age, your skin is going to get really thin and cause some issues.
So it sounds like you're not advocating um, abrasion in cleansers. Am I getting that? That maybe
uh,
that's not a good idea.
I don't think I would say just it depends on the type of exfoliant. So, for example, I use an exfoliant that is jojoba beads. Jojoba is basically a wax. These are little microscopic wax balls. There's no chance of them tearing. And I think, we're in a day and age where skincare companies are really aware of the fact that consumers are savvy, but they're also they don't want to cause problems for consumers. So a lot of companies are turning to things like jojoba beads. So it's just a matter of really looking at your label and seeing what they're using as an exfoliant. And is that going to be good for your face?
Okay. All right. So do people come to you and have you advise them, or do they simply find your products online? How does it work, Lisa?
I've done both, actually. And I think that some women are just feeling like, I have wasted a lot of money and time and going through different products, and I don't want to hear you tell me. I just want to try it. I have no problem with that. And then I think a lot of women uh, definitely my age, have come to me and said, I've never had a skincare routine before, except I just use a Dove bar and, maybe some oil of Olay afterward. I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to use. It's very overwhelming. And for someone like that, I'm more than happy to help. I'm more than happy to help anybody, but um, it tends to be one or the other and very little in between. And it's all good as long as you find a product that works for you. But yes, I've done personal consultations many, many times. And even some people just email and just say, what do you recommend?
And then what happens with that simple question? What do you in general recommend?
So in general, I have a collection called the Radiance Restoring Collection. And this is a very, very simple 4 daily step, 1 weekly step routine that is formulated specifically for aging skin. When I say aging, I'm talking like 45 and older. It's not only for them, but they will benefit greatly from it. And it's a cleanser, a toner, a moisturizer, and a serum. And then there's an exfoliant for a weekly use because we have to get rid of those, dead cells. But basically, I try and recommend that if, unless you have acne-prone skin, which a lot of adults still do, if you don't have acne-prone skin, if you don't have really oily skin, then don't wash your face morning and night. Let's just start right there. That will cut down on irritation and dryness. And you only need it once. I wash my face at night because I do wear makeup, and it's important. I don't want to go to bed with all that on my face. And so I wash at night. In the morning, I just splash water on my face. That's quite enough. A toner is so super important. And I'm one of those people who for years and years never really just was interested in that extra step. But it will reset your pH, the pH on your face's skin. Because using soap has a higher pH and it just kind of throws it all out of whack. So a good toner will reset the pH, but it's also, if you use a cotton round, it's going to wipe away any makeup or debris that is still on your face that you missed when you wash. And I'm going to just quickly debunk a common myth. Your pores don't open and close. They don't have little tiny muscles that, do this when there's hot water or steam or ice cubes or anything. They're just there, but they can stay open if they have debris in them. And that's why using a toner is really good. It just, clears your pores, brings clarity to your skin. It's really nice. It's a great step. My toner actually has some pretty luxurious ingredients in it that will keep your skin hydrated and not dry. So cleanse once a day, use a toner, a moisturizer. That's a very big thing for so many people. Some people like light moisturizers. Some people prefer a heavy moisturizer. I have a serum in this product because serum is great for overnight. And then the exfoliant. So I guess that's sort of a long-winded way of saying your skincare routine does not have to be super involved. It can be if you want to. I'm not saying that, like, if you're the person that loves a lot of products and you love to feel like you've just done everything, great. Do that. But if you're more like me and I just don't want to spend a lot of time, but I want to look my best and have healthy skin, those are the steps I recommend.
Okay. Well, that's been an education, um, especially that part about the pores. I think we all have some belief in that pore thing that we have more control over them than we think we do. Lisa, thank you for all that information. And of course, we're posting as this interview goes on to all of you who are watching it, how you can get a hold of Lisa, how you can investigate her products, and how you can see her beautiful mother and that family that she grew up in. We're going to need to stop in just a little minute, and I want to talk just a tiny bit about you and where you are in your life with the years that you have. I've got a lot more years than you, but as they add up, I think our perspective keeps changing. Our experience certainly deepens. So tell me about maybe what's been your proudest moment in your life.
Wow, that's a great question. Two proudest moments are simply that when I got married and when I became a mother, and the very important reasons for those are, I mentioned before, I unfortunately went through a divorce. in the early 1990s. And by that time, I had suffered many miscarriages and was told I would never be able to conceive children. I actually went through a big operation and everything, and it just didn't end well. So fast forward through my life about 7 years. I met Jim, the man I'm married to today. We're celebrating 25 years this June, which I'm so excited. And so having a second chance at being a wife was huge for me. And then, despite what the doctor said, I have three healthy, beautiful children. And I did not need any sort of outside help for that. And it's just, I don't feel like I deserve those gifts, but I received them anyway, and they're monumental in my life.
That deserve word is one I really struggle with. I don't think we ever know what we deserve. So maybe if that's what comes to us, that's what we get to deal with. And you've had some beautiful blessings. Really, it sounds like
Yes.
they verge on the miraculous. Those children
Yes,
arriving when you were told that wasn't a possibility for you. So,
absolutely.
yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. And any epiphanies that you want to share with us?
Yes, we had talked about, so like over the course of my life, and you just mentioned, you know, any perspectives or epiphanies. I think that there was a period, uh, a year or two after my divorce, where everything was bad and negative, and I sort of fell into a victimhood mentality. Um, and I think that one of the driving forces from my life now is there came a point then that I realized I cannot be a victim anymore, because as long as I'm a victim, I'll never grow, I'll never improve, I'll never be the best person I can be. I'll always just be a victim, blaming other people and things. So for me, that was one of the greatest epiphanies in my life, is that I don't have to be a victim. Bad things happen to everyone, and you deal with it and you embrace it if you can, learn from it, be strengthened from it, and move forward.
That I remember hearing a minister say that self-pity was a drug, and the more you used it, the more you needed to use it. And that's a powerful way to think about it, that we can really get hooked on that particular position in life. It's not my fault. If it weren't for them, everything would be wonderful. And to take our life as our own responsibility and move on from there is really, really liberating. Um, so, last, Lisa, what do you want to tell our listeners and our viewers? What message do you want to give us today?
The message that I would like to share is really, I think that getting older is not something to be afraid of. I think that beauty, there's so many, definitions of beauty. I think beauty lies in personhood, that your value is because you are a person. I think that today's society places a lot of value on the way you look. Now, we all want to be pretty as attractive as we can be. That's the truth. But to hinge your self-worth on that is misplacing your value, because your value really is in who you are as a person. And so if you live a good life and you do the best with what you have, then I believe that your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond are just going to be great, because for me, 40s were great, 50s were better, 60s so far is wonderful. And I'm sure if God gives me 70s and beyond, that's going to be amazing too.
You know, that's my experience, Lisa. I'm pushing 80, and
Oh my.
it just gets better. I mean, granted, the body doesn't do everything that it used to do, or if it does, not nearly as well, but the comfort in my own skin is, it just keeps increasing. I am more and more happy to be me, comfortable with who I am. Sometimes I say it's because the skin gets looser, so it's more comfortable to be inside that skin. I don't know. I do know that it's just gotten better, and it really started getting better at 40. That age that I think often women think, oh my God, it's over. Now we're all going downhill. It hasn't been for me. It's been better and better. And I'm hearing that from you too, that it just keeps that sense of self and comfort with self, and probably the depth of our experience, because we only learn from experience, that keeps deepening who we are and what we have to offer to our small little circle around us and to the world. Lisa, thank you for being my guest today, for giving us some wonderful tips about how to take care of our skin, because it requires more care as we get older. One of the things I like to say is that as babies, we start out as grapes, and as we get older, we turn into raisins. So we've got to do something about that, whatever we can, and then relax. Just relax and accept it. So thank you on so many levels for your stories and about your family and what you have to offer us with your skincare products, and just being my guest. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. It's been quite a pleasure.
And thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Bye for now. Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver.